Hi! In the fourth and last episode of Literature That Connects, Stories Across Latin America and the Latinx Diaspora, sponsored by MSU CLACS, I am going to discuss how literature that connects can be used in the K through 12 classroom through my own experience teaching global stories. Throughout this module, we have explored the importance of understanding and selecting books that offer authentic representations of Latin American cultures and the Latinx diaspora. It is equally important to reflect on instructional decisions that can support meaningful engagements with these global stories. In other words, what books we select is as important as how we can use them. I teach an ESL literacy class in middle school, grades 7 through 8. Last year, I was using a book that had a unit on schools around the world. My students were amazed by the stories featured in this unit. Students around the world take school boats or even climb ladders to go to school. In these lessons, I learned that most of my students used to walk to school before they attended school in the US. 9 kilometers perfectly connected with this unit on schools around the world. The book was translated into English and was originally written in Spanish by Claudia Aguilera, a Chilean author. For some students, the book was a mirror. The story reflected prior experiences in their home countries or other countries in Latin America where they lived and where they walked to school. Most students lived in rural areas and appreciated nature. They shared knowledge of concepts such as kilometers, a metric unit that is commonly used in the countries where they lived. The book was a window because no one had ever been to Chile before. They had no shared knowledge of Chilean geography or schools. Overall, my students could relate to some aspects of the story, but of course, not all. I aligned my lesson around this book to my WIDA standards and learning standards. I wanted students to identify main ideas in this book, ask and answer questions in the present tense, and finally, write a paragraph about their own schools outside of the US. My class consisted of a mixed group of 7th and 8th graders, and their first language was Spanish. As an educator, I am aware that the responsibilities of educators center on creating learning contexts that encourage dialogic inquiry around literature. Although my lesson was focused on developing students' oracy and writing skills in English, I also wanted them to connect with this global story, its geography, society, and culture. I wanted it to spark their curiosity about this boy and the context that shape his way of living. I started this lesson with a before reading activity. Students described the cover and made predictions about where the boy was going based on what he was wearing. One of the students noted that because the boy was wearing a backpack, the boy must be heading to school. Another student suggested that the boy may be going to the market running errands for his mother. This activity activated prior knowledge of vocabulary around clothes, landscapes, and personal memories. Students used visual clues as evidence to make predictions. From the beginning, students were engaged in the story. As a bilingual educator, I was able to incorporate Spanish in my lesson and in my lesson materials to support students' understanding of the story. During the interactive read aloud, I was amazed by the student engagement. For this 50-minute lesson, I selected pages to read and discuss together. Students actively participated throughout the read aloud. Since their language skills in English were emerging, some students were able to produce one word or short phrases. Others responded in Spanish. After the read aloud, they answered initial questions, which were, what does the boy see? What does he do? And where does he get to? We also played a game to review vocabulary about animals present in the story. Since we were running out of time, the lesson ended with a multiple choice activity to check comprehension and again review key vocabulary. Overall, I was very pleased with this lesson. It was the first time I did an interactive read aloud with this group of students, and it went really well. Students were highly engaged. They made personal connections with school experiences in their home countries. For some of them, the lesson helped them review vocabulary, and for other students, it meant learning new words related to animals, landscape, and clothes. Students were very supportive with one another, helping each other finding the words they needed to describe the visuals. I always encourage bilingual practices to support student participation and to help students verbalize their thinking as they develop more fluency and confidence in using the English language. Throughout this module, I demonstrated how we can use stories that help us connect. My students and curriculum are unique, and so are yours. My instructional decisions are grounded in research-based practices that aim to enhance not only reading comprehension and academic learning, but also intercultural connection. I'd like to circle back to the idea that we teachers have a social responsibility when teaching global stories. By taking a stance of social responsibility, we increase the likelihood that interactions with global literature will open minds and create the possibility of changing the world. I hope this module has inspired you to think about how you can support intercultural learning in your classroom, helping your students open their minds and hearts to global stories that connects us across cultures. Thank you for joining me throughout this module.